Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for this third session, actually, of October. So today we are very glad to welcome Stuart Easton. Actually, I met him a few months ago for the charity event we're organizing jointly between PMI UK and Germany, so PM for the World, and he made a wonderful speech. So I was thinking, why not inviting him here today?
No pressure then, huh?
So the presentation will be maximizing ROI unveiling and the strategic power of portfolio management, which can be interesting if you are like me, working in the PM office of your organization, or even if you are only a project manager, you want to understand a bit more about portfolio management. So just a quick overview of the agenda. So I will just quickly present you the guidelines and present you the Germany chapter if you don't know us. And Stuart will have then the floor for 1 hour, and you can as well always raise your question through the chat or raise a hand, and we have as well a Q&A session at the end. And at the end, I will give you the PDU code and some information for the next event. So just to remind you, the ground rules, please mute your microphone if you are not speaking or raising a question. Please use your full name as well, so then we can give you the PDU code. You can use the chat to raise your question or comment, and if Stuart don't see them, I can quickly mention it to him. You can as well share your LinkedIn profile. We will give you actually our LinkedIn group if you want to join our circle of the local group Darmstadt. And you can as well, we will give you at the end the deck of the presentation, as well as the contact of the speaker if you want to raise a question. This session is recorded, and please do not use any AI bot to make any transcripts. So enjoy the session and be nice and professional.
Oh, that's me lost.
So if you don't know the PMI, so it's a Project Management Institute. The organization offer for sure the certification such as a PMP for project management professionals. We are located in more than 20 locations in Germany, and we are divided in 5 regions. So there is, if you are in Germany, there is always a local group next to you. It's a very international community, as you can see. And we organize as well event, webinars. There is a different event we will present you as well later on. So do not hesitate to reach out. And as you can see, more specifically, we are the local group Darmstadt. So not so far from Frankfurt, if you don't know Germany, so from the airport in particular. And we are currently 6 volunteers from 5 different countries. So from North Macedonia, Germany, Lebanon, Afghanistan. So as you can see, we use English in our group. We did more than 60 events. There is we have as well a LinkedIn group with 400 people, and you are welcome to join as well our roundtable every month. So and we are looking as well always for volunteer. So in particular, if you are in Darmstadt region, so do not hesitate to reach out. So I will shortly give the floor to Stuart. So as I said, I met Stuart during the preparation for the PM for the World charity event. He's the CEO and co-founder of Transparent Choice, and he's as well a speaker and a blogger for all matter about project prioritization and portfolio governance. He's as well a guest lecturer for Oxford University and USC. And he helps PMO to deliver strategic value and improves project success rates through some masterclass. So as well, transparent choice software helps as well PMO and leaders and executive for different organizations such as the US House of Representatives, and Susano and McCormick make high impact decisions faster using the decision science and techniques. So I think I will let now the floor to Stuart, and I will ask you to enjoy the presentation and to give a warm welcome to Stuart.
Thank you. So good to meet you all. So we're gonna have hopefully some fun today, right? There's gonna be some a little bit of silliness and some interaction as well. So what I'd love you to do is just go find the chat button now, and in there, just sort of think about your own project delivery organization, whether you're the PMO or a project manager, it doesn't really matter, but your organization that delivers projects inside your company or your department, government department, or wherever you work. And tell me sort of where you rank in the thinking of your executives, right? So a 0 would be, they don't even know you exist, right? A 3 would be, oh God, not them again, right? What do? We pay them money, but they never deliver anything, right? That would be kind of a 2 or a 3. A 10 would be, we can't run this organization without these guys, right? So just very quickly, go find the chat and drop in. Where are you on that? Oh, that's a brave statement, Stefan. All right, we may be challenging that one later on. That's pretty brave to come out the door with an 8. Brilliant. Okay, some people feeling good about their level of maturity here and where the execs see them. So I asked this question or something very similar with a group of people from the UK NHS, the National Health Service, the other day, and I'd say the average was about a 4 on this scale. So you guys are doing pretty well. So hopefully that means that you're going to be able to push back a little bit more, ask more questions, and that's what I want you to do. There you go, Bettina. That's brilliant. Well done. Congratulations. So what I'd like you to do is keep that chat window open, right, and get engaged. This session is going to be way more fun and way more interesting if you're asking questions, if you're making comments, talking to each other. If you agree with what I'm saying, give us a yay in the chat. If you think I'm talking nonsense, great, tell me, right? And let's dive into it. So what we're gonna do, let me just sort of do a bit of an intro. So Florian, thank you for the introduction. I wear 2 hats. One hat is I run a software company called Transparent Choice. We do kind of class leading portfolio management software. So, most PPM tools don't do a great job with portfolio management. And so we fill that gap where we do these functions really, really well. So that's one job. And in that job, I'm really lucky because I get to talk to C-suite executives all the time and PMOs all the time. And I kind of live in that space between those two, between the leadership and the project delivery and portfolio management area. And that gives me a really interesting perspective, because I see the frustrations that the leadership team has. I see the frustrations that the PMO has, right? And in a way, my job is to try and make that better, to reconcile that. The other hat I wear, as Florian said, is kind of this educator hat, going around to universities and conferences and doing PMI chapters and all the rest of it. Spreading the word about portfolio management. It's one of those things that people often look at as being little checkbox that you got to check, right? It's this technical thing, and yeah, we kind of do it, but the fundamental point I want to get across to you is that this portfolio management stuff is the biggest lever that the PMO has, the project delivery team has overall, to add value to your organization. It is the biggest lever, not project execution, but portfolio management is where the lever is. Okay, so we're going to look at how on earth does that work. Right? That's basically what we're going to do today. So let's jump in, and funnily enough, when I went to grab my LinkedIn profile, this was the first thing I saw, Americo Pinto. So if you're in the PMO, first of all, I hope you all are part of the PMO Global Alliance, which is part of the PMI, and you might want to consider heading out to Istanbul in December, where we're doing the unconference, and I'm chairing one of the workshops out there. So quick flag wave for the PMI's PMO Global Alliance. It's a bit of a mouthful, that one. And Americo Pinto. So does everybody know Americo, by the way? You should do if you're in PMO. Excellent. So Florian, I when I'm presenting, I can't see the chat. So if you can just kind of keep me updated if there's anything interesting there, that would be awesome. Thank you. All right, I'm going to move that up there, and then let's go into present mode. Cool. So as I said, there's a really serious message there here about portfolio management, but we're going to do it, and we're going to have some fun, and we're going to have some fun with my little friends, the ducks. Anyone who's interested, all these ducks are AI generated. I typically use Media Magic through Canva. So anybody who's into all that kind of AI stuff and generative AI and is interested, happy to answer any questions separately after the session on how we do that. All right. Why ducks? Right? This makes no sense. Why ducks? Well, as Donald Trump might say, we've got the best ducks in the world. We're going to have the most amazing eggs, right? But actually, there's a story here, which is a friend of mine was presenting his project to the CEO of one of the world's biggest oil and gas companies. And he's doing what all of us project geeks do, right? He's telling him about the Gantt chart and the earned value report and all these things. And the CEO stopped him and he said, Roberto, I don't care if you've got a boy duck or a girl duck. I just want eggs. Okay, so I don't care about the details of your project. I don't care if it's agile or waterfall. I don't care what it is, how you run it, what your controls look like, what your tools look like. I really don't care. The only thing I want is the value from that project. I want the eggs. And this is the first really big point, right? The only thing your executives care about is the egg. We should not be surprised by this because it's right there in the name, right? They are egg executives. And if English isn't your first language, by the way, there are going to be lots of puns, really bad ones in here. So I apologize if some of them don't make sense to you, but this one hopefully does. So they are executives. They only care about the egg. So as a project delivery team and as a PMO in particular, right, your job is to maximize the egg, right? Maximize, get to give them bigger eggs, more eggs, break fewer eggs. And the big idea today is that I'm going to put to you that it's actually relatively easy to double the amount of egg you give people by making more intelligent use of portfolio management. Okay, double it. That's a huge target. Oops, sorry, this all jumped forward a few slides. So what happened there? Why does it jump forward? Hang on. Let me go right back here. Apologies. All right, so we're down here. All right, so we're doubling the egg. Right, so lots of PMOs on this session, and PMOs love a good dashboard. So I've developed a little dashboard that we can use for the presentation, right? It's the return-o-matic. How much business impact? What's the strategic return that we're giving to the business in return for the money and the resources they're giving us to do projects, right? They're investing projects, so are they getting a return? So this is the return-o-matic dashboard. And on the left-hand side, we've got the sad duck, right? So this is anyone that was scoring kind of 2, 3, 4 on that scale at the beginning. That's you. You're in the sad duck territory. The golden egg is that they couldn't operate without you. The business just wouldn't work. And so where are we as an industry? Right? Can't talk to you individually about your situation, but as an industry, things don't look good. Okay, so this is AIPM data. So around half of projects don't meet the business goals. Right? That's shocking to me. This is PMI data. These are the top line is success rates. This line with the arrow there, those are projects failed, budget lost. Right? That's total car wreck. Right? And that number is hovering around 30%, just over 30%, and it has been for 20 years. Now, to put that into context, right? To put that into context, imagine you drive to work every day in your car, and 6 or 7 days every single month, your journey to work ends like that. Now, jump into the chat. Would you keep that car? If your car burst into flames 6 or 7 times every month, would you keep that car? Is anybody going to be brave enough to say that they would keep that car? My guess is not, right? That you get rid of that car. That's how the executives feel very often about the PMO and project delivery overall, right? They're really frustrated. So that's not a good start, but it's worse than that because, again, industry average numbers, around 60% of projects are late, around 60% are over budget. Okay, so we're spending more than we should be. The most common thing I hear from executives when I talk to them is that projects take too long, they cost too much, and we never get the result that we wanted anyway. Right? So why do I spend the money? And this is common across all sectors, all geographies, all industries. Right? The same kind of data, the same kind of results, and the same kind of complaints. And that's why your executives are stomping around like the Incredible Hulk. Right? This is not a good place for them to be frustrated that projects are costing too long, taking too much, and not delivering the results. Now, if we could move the dashboard over here, right, suddenly we wouldn't have the Incredible Duckling or the Incredible Hulk. We'd have Bruce Banner again, right? So those of you who are of a Marvel state of mind will understand the reference. So this doubling of the eggs, right? Doubling of the value, the strategic impact that we get from the portfolio. Is that possible? I mean, that sounds crazy. That's crazy talk. Well, it's not crazy talk, not at all. Let me introduce you to Mike Hannon. Mike's a good friend of mine. And Mike's been using the techniques that I'm going to talk about today and 1 or 2 others to deliver these kind of results for the last few decades. And what's changed is that now the technology with AI and things like that, there's some special AI built into our product, for example, that does some of this stuff really well. And it's not the sort of generic ChatGPT AI. But what's changed is that the technology now means that anyone can do this. You don't have to be a theory of constraints expert or a project flow wunderkind like Mike. Anybody, any PMO, any professional can get these kind of results. And you may not get there through the path that you would expect. So most people imagine that it's going to be something to do with project execution, right? It's going to be something to do with the templates and the process and all that kind of good stuff of delivering projects. And it's not. So we need to figure out, if it's not that, what is it? So there's a bit of a mystery here that we need to solve. So to help us solve it, we've got a world famous duck detectives. We've got Sherlock Holmes. And of course, I'm just outside London, which of course is where Sherlock Holmes was based. This QR code, by the way, it's going to pop up several times. There's a load of resources that we've pulled together, ebooks and videos and things like that, which if you go through there, you can scan it at any of the times it comes up. and you can go and access all of those resources that tell you about these techniques that we're going to go over today. All right, Sherlock Holmes, first clue, if you please. All right, we're back to this slide. This is PMI success rates, right? And so the top lines, each line is slightly different indicator of success or failure. It doesn't matter which line we pick. The point of this is that those lines are flat, right? Now, this is at a time, so in other words, we're not getting better particularly. And this is at a time when we're spending something like $7 billion every year on PPM tools. The PMI's revenue last year, I think it was, or the year before, was $340 odd million, right? That's all the training, support, certifications, all that kind of good stuff. We're investing an absolute fortune in templates, in process, in training, and it's not improving the numbers. Now, please don't think for a second that what I'm saying is we shouldn't do that stuff. We absolutely should. This top line here is sort of around about 65, 70%. If you go back 30 or 40 years before we professionalized the industry, this number would have been more like 20, 25%. Okay, so we've come a long way, and all of that training and those certifications, that's what's got us to 65%. But 65% is not good enough. We can do more. So the message from this is that you cannot project management your way out of this. You can't improve on this sort of 30% crash and burn number by just focusing on project management. Because if you could, that $7 billion a year would have fixed the problem, and it has not. This isn't me being theoretical. This is just pragmatically looking at the data. It tells us an incredibly clear story. Second clue. And to help us, we've got Dr. Watson, which again, sorry for the puns. Okay, we're going to do some root cause analysis. Right, so we've got delays, cost overruns, project failure, whatever, however you define it. So why? Who gets the blame? Jump into the chat if you would. Who gets the blame when a project fails? Who gets the blame? And jump out and see take a quick look at the chat. Anyone? All right, the project manager, there we go. The project manager, you got it. The project manager gets the blame. And so let's go talk to the project manager and say, what's going on? Why is the project failing? Well, it turns out that, you talk to the project manager, they've been trained, they've got the tools they need, right? So what is the problem? Well, the problem, they'll tell you, is the project delivery resources, right? They never deliver anything on time. So you go talk to them and you say, what's going on? Are you a bunch of idiots? Why don't you deliver anything on time? They say, well, look, I'm trying to deliver 13 things, 13 tasks all at the same time. And so I'm jumping from task to task. Every time I do that, I lose, it takes me half an hour to kind of shift my head from that one to this one. And then I'm just getting started, and the project manager from project one, he comes and he wants an update. So I have to stop and give him an update, and I just get going again, and project manager two comes and asks for an update, and I give him an update. And I spend my entire day switching between tasks and giving people updates. And so your resources are being pulled in multiple dimensions. Now, multitasking. Now, actually, I did this deliberately. I put multitasking on here. But when you're looking at complex tasks like deliverable, creating deliverables for a project, human beings are not capable of multitasking. The American Psychology Association did some research, and they showed very clearly we don't multitask. We task switch. We move from one task to the next one, and every time you do that, you lose efficiency. And in fact, it's so bad. What they found is that you lose up to 40%, 40, right? 40% of your capacity just disappears in managing the multitasking. I'm going to pause just for a few seconds to let you think about that. What could you achieve if you could get that 40% back? Okay, so why are our resources multitasking like this? Well, it's because we've got too many projects. It's not because, and I say this again, I'm going to underscore this 3 or 4 times. This is not a resource management problem. They're not multitasking because you're not managing resources properly. They're multitasking because they have too many projects. Simple as that. You could be doing resource management perfectly, but if you have too many projects, your people are multitasking. So why do we have too many projects? Because prioritization is broken. Okay. Now we could have done root cause analysis a different way, gone down a different branch, and we would have ended back again at a different part of portfolio management. Maybe it would be capacity planning or something like that, right? So the root cause of almost all, and I mean 95, 98, 99% of project failure, the root cause, when you trace it back, comes back to governance, portfolio management, decision making. Okay. So that little piece I stole from Laura Barnard. As it happens, I'm meeting up with Laura after this webinar for dinner. She's here in the UK today. So she and I are going to go out and have a lovely little dinner. If you don't know Laura Barnard, if you run a PMO and you don't know Laura Barnard, right, scan that QR code, go listen to her talking, go to PMO Strategies, which is her website, and follow Laura, subscribe to her podcast. If you're a PMO, she will help guide you to to being a really high impact PMO leader. Phenomenal human being, incredible knowledge. So that whole root cause analysis thing I stole from Laura. All right, third clue. Okay, this is a study from the PMI. So they looked at the top performing project delivery organizations around the world. And if you remember, the average typical portfolio will be delivering, mid 60s, something like that, percent of projects will actually deliver the intended business goal. Those top performers are delivering the business goal over 90% of the time, all the time. They're delivering on budget over 90% of the time, all the time. They're delivering on time, over 90% of the time, all the time. So, and that's a huge, right? So 65 to 90 doesn't sound like a big jump, but as a percentage, right, that's nearly a 50% increase. It's huge. So what is it that the research found that made this difference? And it wasn't about project management. They all had good project managers following decent methodologies with good templates. The difference was the guys who were performing at a high level were using portfolio management strategically, were really committed to doing it well. All right. There's a blog on this, which you can see the link there. You'll get the slides afterwards, so you can go chase it down if you want to read some more. So the results of this, the conclusion from this, is that it's portfolio governance or portfolio management, they're more or less the same thing, that make the difference, right? That's the key to unlocking superior performance. And remember, the way we're defining performance is delivering eggs, more eggs, bigger eggs, fewer broken eggs, right? That's how we're defining value and performance. All right, so this sounds hard work. So we're going to need some help to make all of this happen. So it's time for some superheroes. Here we go, the Eggvengers. Yay! We've already met the incredible duckling, and we're going to meet some of the other characters as we go through here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through 4 techniques that you can use to double the eggs. Make sense? Let's jump in. First one, this is a PMI statistic. So PMI did some research in a typical portfolio. So they looked right around the world, private sector, so different sectors, so private sector, public sector, and so on, different industries. And they found that across all of those, a typical portfolio will have 20% of projects that are so badly aligned with the goals of the organization, they should be stopped. That sounds to me like a pretty good definition of waste, right? We're doing 20% of projects that are not adding value at all. In fact, a lot of those projects are destroying value. So if you just stop doing those, you would leap forward in terms of the strategic, achieving your business goals, your strategic goals, which is the point of doing projects. And there is a right tool. So just like the Duck of Asgard likes his hammer, right? For prioritization, there is a right tool. This is called the Analytic Hierarchy Process, AHP. Silly name, don't worry about the name. Tom Sati, the academic who first developed this idea, gave it the name, and it kind of describes what it does, but it's a silly name. But the key thing is that this is recommended by decision scientists. So there are actually people in research departments around the world looking at how they can improve this project prioritization process. It turns out that aligning your activities with your strategy is probably the most important thing as a company that you do, or as a government department, or whatever your organization is. It's probably the single most important decision they make. So some studies have shown that the overall performance of your organization is correlated at 80%, 80% with strategic alignment. Okay, so that means that this decision is explaining 80% of the performance variation between different organizations. That is huge. It probably implies, in my interpretation, is that implies that aligning your projects to the strategy of the organization is more important than what the strategy is, right? You could pick a bad strategy. So long as you align all your activity to a bad strategy, you're going to be successful. So this is probably the most important decision the organization makes, but so few organizations invest in doing it well. And it's the easiest thing to fix. And it's the foundation of everything else that's going to come. So AHP, Analytic Hierarchy Process, is the right tool. We don't have a lot of time. We don't have enough time today to go into the details of that. But if you scan the QR code that keeps popping up, you'll be able to read about AHP, and there are videos and all kinds of things that'll explain it to you. So let's think about what this means, right? So let's say you're investing $10 million, 10 million euros in your portfolio. And I use that word deliberately, invest, right? The business is investing in projects and they want to get a return on that. Okay, so investing 10 million, 20% waste, that's $2 million, but it's worse than that because we're expecting a return. So let's say it's a 3 times return on investment that we're expecting. So we're not wasting 2 million. We're losing out on 6 million, right? 6 million of lost value on. So imagine what would happen to your return on investment if you could get an extra $6 million of value back from that same investment on a $10 million investment. That's a 60% improvement right there. It's huge. All right, so where are we on the dashboard? We love a dashboard, we're PMOs. Okay, so we started at the sad duck and we've come a long way, right? Just sorting that one thing means that we have bigger eggs. We're delivering bigger eggs and more of the right kind of eggs, right? So suddenly we're not as sad duck as we were. Okay, next technique. All right, now most organizations, you will have at least 2 different sub-portfolios in the business. So you'll have all the keep the lights on projects. Okay, so these are the business as usual projects, mandatory projects, all that kind of good stuff. And then you also have the business projects, the strategic projects, the transformation projects, call them what you will. It doesn't matter what you call them. You know what I mean. Okay, into the chat again, if you would, for a second. Which of those 2 portfolios do your executives care about? Right, so say yes now if you think the one they care about is keeping the lights on. Right, give me a yes if you think it's keep the lights on. No, well done, Thomas. No, you didn't fall for it. Bang on. Right, so the one that the execs care about is the transformation, right? Those business, right? It's the green ducks here, not the yellow ducks. They want the green ducks. And in most portfolios, what you find, or at least most of the ones that I see, what we find is that 70 or 80% of the resources are being sucked into just keeping the lights on. And that leaves only one poor little ducky here. That's the green duck, right? The execs would love more than that. So the idea here is that what would happen if we could increase the flow of ducks, right? If we could increase the flow of ducks just by 25% in this case, we would double the strategic impact, right? We're still doing 3 little yellow ducks, but we've doubled the number of green ducks. And these are the ones that the executives care about, right? That's really key, right? We didn't have to increase capacity a lot to have a big impact on the strategic value from the portfolio. All right, here's how we're going to do it. Right, fingers on keyboards, and I would love it if you can give me a running commentary of what's coming into the chat at this point, because that'll save me jumping between the two screens. So here we go. Here's a road, and so the first question is, why do we build roads? Why do we build roads? What's the point of a road?
So Stefan is saying faster transportation. Arshad is saying to commute. Shanaka, transportation.
Excellent.
Ahmed, connectivity.
Okay.
Pierre,
so the common theme there is we're moving stuff around, right? and the key is that what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people and products, right, from A to B, right? So the value is getting people from one place to another. We do that by putting the people in cars, right? So that's like projects. So the people are the value, cars are the projects. But we only have so much space on the road to fit all those cars. So that's like the resource constraints that we have when we're delivering projects. Okay, so the goal is to get as many people to the destination as we can. And we do that by putting them in cars and putting the cars on the road. Now we have 0% utilization of our resources here. We've got an empty road. So how many people are getting to the destination? This little bit, there's lots of fingers on keyboard. So just keep your fingers there. How many people are getting to their destination?
Waiting for some answers.
They're probably trying to work it out. What's this divided by that? How many people are getting there? It's not a trick question.
All except the ones with the bad car. Either 100 or 0.
0, yeah. 0.
None, 0. Anyone who travels the path.
Yeah, all the cyclists are going a different way and getting there, right? But 0. You're absolutely right. There's nobody getting to the destination. So we put some cars on the road. Let's put some cars on the road. So we get to say 30% utilization. This is great. Cars are flying along. People are getting to the destination. Everybody's happy. So we put more cars on the road. And people are going, and people are going, this is great. We put more cars on, we get more people to the destination. So Florian, what does the CEO say next, right? He's seeing this. We're putting more cars on, we're getting more value, getting more people to the destination. So what does he say? Put more cars on, right? In fact, the CEO is going to say, yeah, keep going. Let's go for 100% utilization. 100% utilization. You can't do better than 100% utilization. But what do we call 100% utilization of a road? That's a question for you guys. What do we call it when you have 100% utilization of the road?
I think everybody's saying traffic jam, and
there it is. Yeah, absolutely. So how many people are getting to their destination now? I love this question because everybody answers this one differently. How many people are getting to their destination now?
So some people are saying 0, other 100%. Everyone,
it's a low number. It's a low number. And they get there slowly, right? And they're all frustrated.
Like answers, the cyclists.
Now that's an interesting one. Yeah, those little guys, they're sneaking down the side, right? They're getting there. So the answer is basically not many, right? Some are getting there, but not many. And it's happening really slowly. So let's turn this into project language, right? So on the horizontal axis, this is your resource utilization. And this is how much business value you're delivering. You only deliver value when you actually deliver the project and make sure that the benefit is realized in the organization. Right? So you don't get any points until you've realized that benefit. Okay, so when your utilization is really low, we're not delivering much value. So we add some projects, we deliver more value. Then we add more projects, we deliver more value. But somewhere around here, and this is usually around 80 or 85% utilization. Okay, so if you look at queuing theory, there's a waiting time chart, and around about 80, 85%, it just shoots off into the sky, straight up like that. Okay, and that's the exact same thing here, right? Where suddenly we're starting to get resource contention between projects, and things flatten off. And so if we keep adding more projects, we don't get more value, we get less. Right? So this is like going into the traffic jam. And most organizations that we see are way over here on the right-hand side, often beyond 100%. Right? Often the planned, committed portfolio plan has them listing projects that they're going to do this year that actually exceed their capacity somewhere. Now, if we can use the prioritization to change that, right, to say no, prioritization is not about saying yes. Prioritization is about allowing the organization to safely say no to projects. Okay, so if we can say no to the right projects, first of all, with AHP, right, we're getting rid of the waste, so we've got a higher hill. And then if we can measure and predict the value and overlay the resources, we can put ourselves on top of that hill. Okay, so top of the hill, that's the second of these techniques, right? So we've done prioritization, we've done top of the hill. So we want to go there. And this is where AI, historically, this has been quite difficult to do. Now we have AI tools, so our tool, for example, will simulate thousands of portfolios hunting for the one that puts you on top of the hill, right? That gives you the maximum value, which is really kind of cool. Right, third technique, staggering. So most organizations do a big planning session at the end of the year, and then they select projects, and then the first of the year comes around, the new budget's open, and what happens is that all of those executive sponsors, right, they start jumping up and down, and they're saying, "Start my project, get going, I want my project, please start it now." So what do you do? What do your delivery guys do? Right? They start the first project and they do a bit of work on that one. Then they task switch to the next project, and they task switch and they task switch, right? They keep doing that and they hand it off to the next team. Same thing happens. And eventually, somewhere right over here, we get first value delivered. Hooray! Right? And the really cool thing is that as soon as you've started these projects over on the left-hand side, the executive sponsor is going, "Oh, cool, you've started my project, thanks." They're happy, right? Because they see something happening. That may be the last time you see them, but that's a different topic for a different webinar. But they're at least happy right now because we've started all the projects, right? Everybody feels like something's happening. But the first value is all the way out here. So I've got an idea. Instead of doing that, let's do this. Let's start one project. Let's schedule the projects so that we're only starting them when resources come free. Now, two really good things happen when you do this. First of all, we are not now task switching. Can anybody remember how much of our capacity we're losing when we're task switching, when your delivery resources are task switching? Does anybody remember? Drop it in the chat. Anyone? This is where I see if anybody was paying attention.
So Stefan, 40%, 40%, 40%. So they were listening.
Right, they were listening. Excellent, well done. So we've just got 40% back, right, or 30% maybe, and so that means that we can squeeze more projects in for free, right? So we've got more capacity simply by not overloading our people and staggering the project. And the second thing that happens is because we're not going from project to project to project, we just chomp along here and we deliver the result. We're getting value way earlier than we were in the top scenario. And even this project, we start this project later. Amazingly, we still finish it earlier. And this one, right, we start even later and we still finish it earlier. And you can go away, you can check the squares all add up, right? And so we're getting free capacity back, right? So free projects, and we're delivering value earlier. Both of those things have a huge impact on the return on investment that your executives see, that strategic return on investment from the portfolio projects. So just doing this is often enough to double the ROI. Okay, so Mike Hannon, his flow rate, he's not happy until he's doubled or tripled or sometimes quadrupled the flow of projects through the resources, right? Without increasing the number of resources. Okay, just by doing this stuff. He has a few other tricks that he uses as well around how you manage risk in projects and buffers and things like that. But fundamentally, it's these three techniques we've covered so far that drives Mike's incredible performance improvements. Okay. All right. I've got one more technique.
We have a question from
Yes, fire away.
Stepan. What if some of those blocks have to come back to an earlier department? For example, that I need the middle blue after the last blue blocks again. Then this will extend project again, doesn't it?
Well, actually, that's a great question. So, actually, so doing this in the traditional way, if you try and do this in a spreadsheet, it's quite difficult if you have any size to your portfolio. Some PPM tools will let you do this in a chart where you set out, what resources do you need, and you put your projects on kind of a Gantt chart. So in that case, you would have, then you'd go light blue, light blue, right, until you finish the project. And they'll let you drag and drop the projects around, showing you what effect does that have on your resources. So where are the hot spots? And you get into what I call project whack-a-mole, right? Whack-a-mole is a game where this little creature that looks like a mole pops up out of a hole and you hit it, right? You whack the mole. And another mole pops up out of another hole and you whack that one, and another mole pops up, and you go around and you're hitting these moles. And it's like that, right? So you realize that in January, your resources are killed, right? Your resources have turned red. So you drag and drop a project. Great, we fixed January, but now we've broken March. So you drag and drop and we fixed March, but now we've broken May and July. So we drag and drop a couple more projects. We fixed May and July, but now we've broken January again, right? And you just go round and round and round. So you play whack-a-mole. And it can take a long time. I asked one guy, for about 40 project portfolio, how long would it take you to come up with your roadmap doing this? And he said, yeah, when we do this, it takes about a day and a half to come up with one scenario that kind of works. So what's changed, what's new now is that there's AI technology, and my company does some of this, right? So where you can just press a button and the software will do this for you. It'll figure out what order and what sequence to do the projects in to try and, front load the value, but make sure it's deliverable, make sure that you're not overloading your people. And it'll run, in the case, I don't know about other tools, but our tool, when you press the green button, it runs, it's actually a blue button, but when you press the button, it'll run something like, 150 to 300,000 simulations to try and find the one that gives you the best results. There's no way a human being could do that. So earlier I said that, it used to be that you had to be this theory of constraints superhero like Mike Hannon. And the technology now makes it so that you can do that. So it doesn't really matter what order and how much of each of these resource blocks you're using. To come back to the question, you could go light blue, dark blue, mid blue, light blue, dark blue, right? It could be whatever the shape is. The AI now, at least in Transparent Choice, the AI will do all of that hard work for you. You can absolutely do it manually, especially if you have a small portfolio. That can be quite manageable. But once you get to a bigger portfolio, once you're into tens of projects, this can be really quite difficult to do. So this is formally in portfolio speak. This is capacity planning. Right, so we're not doing resource management. We're not saying, Jürgen is going to work on that project next Tuesday, right? That's resource management. We're doing capacity planning at the portfolio level. We're working out what order should we be doing projects in so that they are not overloading the resources overall. Okay, and it's one of the key capabilities in most PMO capability models and maturity assessments and all that kind of good stuff. And it is just so powerful when you do it right. And some people will try and do it this way, right? But that gives you problems. This is how you want to be doing it if you want to maximize that ROI, maximize the flow, maximize the benefit. Did that answer the question? Hopefully. So
Yes. Yeah.
how are we doing? Back to our dashboard, because we love a dashboard, right? How are we doing on our dashboard? Well, this is where we were last time, right? We'd fixed prioritization and that got us away from the sad duck, but we're not quite into the green zone yet. So now we put ourselves on top of a higher hill and we're staggering. So we're getting more projects and they're failing less often, right? So we're not breaking the eggs. They're not going over time, over budget as often, because we're not overloading our resources, and we're maximizing the flow through, because we're staggering the projects and really intelligently using our resources to flow value through the projects. I've got one more technique I'm going to share with you, and this is the Iron Mallard, right? So Iron Man turned duck, and Iron Man, right? He's not actually a superhero, right? He doesn't have superpowers. He's just really smart, right? And he invents loads of stuff, and he thinks differently. So that's what's going on here, right? So earlier we looked at this and we said, well, how can we get more ducks? And we doubled the green ducks. But the Iron Mallard thinks differently, and he's kind of saying, well, what would happen if we pushed the water level down? Right? Again, we've added another green duck. We've only pushed it down one duck, and we've given ourselves another green duck. So we've actually tripled the amount of strategic impact that we're delivering to the organization by doing this. Okay, sounds great. How do we do it? How do we actually make that happen? So we're going to use a concept called the efficient frontier. So the idea here is that we've got cost on this axis. Sorry, we've got a letter cut off there. It's down below. We've got cost on the horizontal axis. And this is the business impact from the projects. Now, we're in the business as usual, keep the lights on, mandatory projects portfolio here. So in this case, right, we're measuring business value mostly in terms of reducing risk, maybe some efficiency improvements, things like that. But it's things, so if it was an IT portfolio, it would be things like, if we don't upgrade this database, that system might go down, and that would be a problem, right? So we're doing these projects mostly to kind of manage risk. Mandatory projects, for example, are not actually, you don't have to do mandatory projects. You could choose not to do them. But if you chose not to do them, that would introduce risk into the business. If you were a bank and you didn't comply with regulations, you would lose your banking license, right? That's a risk. So it's always, so these BAU and keep the lights on projects are usually mostly about risk. So the way to read this chart is as follows. If we spent a certain amount of money, right, a gray arrow on projects, we would get this much value, right? We do the projects on the left. The projects are sorted by the highest value for money on the left and the lowest value for money on the right. So we do the first chunk of investment, we get this much value, right? And then if we invest the same again, we're going to get less value. And if we keep going, we're getting less and less value. Each time we make that investment, another chunk of investment, we're getting less value back for it. So this is the law of diminishing returns, right? So the more you're getting smaller and smaller returns every time you spend the money, or sometimes it's called Pareto's law. And what this means is that in most organizations, like I said earlier, what we see is that most of the investment is going into these keep the lights on projects because they get tagged as must do. They're not must do, actually, but they are tagged as must do projects, so they get done. So let's say we've got our 10 little ducks, and that delivers 8 eggs of value. Now, of course, there's another portfolio, the business impact portfolio. This is the one that the executives actually care about, right? These are the change projects that they want, right? So we've swapped. We're in the different sub portfolio now, and because we've put so many ducks into the keep the lights on portfolio, we've only got enough resources to deliver 2 ducks worth of work here, 2 projects here. And so that's going to give us, we're on the steep part of the curve. So that's going to give us 4 eggs, right? Which is okay, right? That's a good return for just 2 ducks worth of effort. But here's an idea. What if we didn't do these 2 ducks here, right? What if we only did 8 ducks in the keep the lights on portfolio? We've lost half an egg. Would anybody notice half an egg? Probably not, because this isn't the value that the executives care about. Right? They care about the change portfolio, the transformation portfolio, the strategic portfolio. So let's take these 2 ducks and move them into that change portfolio, the transformation portfolio, right? And what you'll see is, we've got 2 extra eggs. We've got 50% more egg just by rebalancing. So by using prioritization to really prioritize and to challenge and evaluate your keep the lights on project, we were able to eliminate projects that really weren't reducing much risk at all. Right? So we haven't really increased. If we go back here, right, where are we? There, right? What this is telling us is that we've reduced the investment by 20%, but we've actually reduced the value by usually 2-3%, right? So really negligible. Right, so we've not meaningfully increased the risk in the business, but we're getting a huge amount more value back. Right, so how are we doing on our dashboard? Well, now we're knocking it out the park. Right, golden eggs all around. Everyone's excited because we've easily doubled that ROI. Okay, so doubling that ROI isn't about doing project management better. Right. Let's assume you've got basic project management under control, which if you're all at 7s and 8s on that scale right at the beginning, you've already figured out how to do that more or less. Right. This is about reducing waste, so doing the prioritization, top of the hill, put yourself on top of the higher hill, staggering and pushing down the water, right? Using that efficient frontier to rebalance between your portfolios, between your sub-portfolios, to get more of the value that your executives want, right? And to spend less resource on the stuff, not to the point where you're increasing risk in the business in any meaningful way, but doing it in a way that you're just cutting out the investments that maybe you don't need to actually make. And every company is making those investments today. So that's it. That's kind of the end of the story. I'm going to leave that QR code there for a few seconds so you can all go and download the resources. There's an ebook on project prioritization, how to do it. There's an ebook on criteria, coming up with criteria for prioritization. That's something that people will often struggle with. There's a little mini video introductory course thing in these techniques and what they look like, and so on and so forth. There's some blogs that relate to some of the things we've been talking about. So there's a whole bunch of stuff behind that QR code. So just dive on in, help yourselves. If you want to talk about this stuff, usually the place to start, it's time to hatch a plan. Usually the place to start is what we call a case for change. So that is a little working session that we would do with you, where we go through your portfolio and your performance and the opportunity to improve that ROI. Because the most important part of this transformation, it's not about software, by the way. The most important part of this is about getting your leadership's buy-in to change the way that you're doing portfolio management or portfolio governance, call it whatever you like. And so that case for change, we find really help, whether they buy our software or not. Often companies will find that really useful to help them get the attention and hold the attention of the executives so they can get these changes in the way you work embedded in the organization. Software can help hold that in place, right? It's scaffolding to help hold it in place. But the important thing is not the software. The important thing is getting executives to really buy into doing this portfolio management properly, understanding what's in it for them, why it matters to them. And the answer is you're going to get more of the eggs you want, the golden eggs, right? And less boring chicken eggs. Excellent. I think we are pretty much done there. Any sort of questions, comments, observations? Anyone agrees, disagrees?
So actually, we have some question in the chat, Stuart, already.
Do you want to be the question master?
So I can read it for you. So what is the guarantee that by reducing the ducts for mandatory project, we get huge value and transformation projects? Sometimes the mandatory project covers the running costs.
Yeah, so sometimes there are those regulatory projects, and they really are. So we did this with a bank, right? And what they said to us was that the regulatory, just the regulatory stuff, not even keep the lights on, right? But just regulatory stuff was taking about, so projects that were absolutely tagged as must-do projects were taking something like 50% of their resources, 50. And so we took them through a process of actually challenging them, right? And saying, what's the impact of, if we didn't do this, what would happen? And scoring that against a scale. And they discovered that actually something like 20 or 30% of those projects, yes, they were mandatory, but they weren't introduced, if they didn't comply with the regulations, and not all the regulations were coming from government, some were from industry bodies and recommendations and best practices and things like this. And they discovered that 20 or 30% of those they could safely not do, right? So that gave them back a whole chunk of value. So sometimes you just have to do mandatory projects. They may not add anything to your business other than allowing you to stay in business, right? So again, banking is a great example where there's lots of regulation that is not there for the benefit of the bank. It's there for the benefit of the consumer, to protect the consumer. But you have to comply if you want to stay in business in that country, right? So there are going to be projects out there that have no return on investment, aren't strategic at all, but you just have to do them. That's okay. That's okay. You still need to schedule them. You still need to stagger. You still need to allocate resources to them, and then optimize the other projects around it. So it's about making sure that you're challenging them and letting through the ones that really are important for either for regulatory reasons or whatever it may be, and not, but then cutting out the ones that are just being flagged as must do because somebody's figured out that's the way to get your project done. I'm not sure. Did I answer the question there? I'm not sure. I kind of went off in a different tangent. Did that answer the question? I'm not sure who asked that one.
Arshad, is it fine for you, the answer, or do you? Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, Stuart, thank you very much for the answer. You answered my question, and I'm satisfied with the answer. As you said, in the banking sector, it might be necessary to have the strategic projects, to cover all the aspects of regulatory changes and all those things. But I think it depends on the industry, and it's also case-to-case scenario. But I think you answered the question. Yeah, thank you.
And let me give you another example of which is really interesting. So I was talking to a group in the National Health Service in the UK a month or two ago, and they had so many government targets, all of which are mandatory, that they actually kicked off something like 120 different projects to try and meet all of these mandatory goals. And I kind of looked at them and like, you guys couldn't deliver 100. You don't have capacity to deliver 120 projects. How many did you actually complete? Because that's what you get the points for, right? If you remember, is completing them. They said, oh, we completed 20 out of 120 projects. And so I just kind of played back to them. Well, let's go back in time and rerun that experiment. Instead of launching 120 projects, imagine you launched 40 projects. How many do you think you would have completed then? And they thought about it and they realized that, all of that resource they put into those projects that never completed were wasted. And if they, instead of wasting those resources, if they just put them into another 20 projects, they would have doubled how much value they achieved. They would not have achieved all their goals, but guess what? They would have got closer than they did in reality, right? So even when you have mandatory projects, you still have to prioritize which of those mandatory things we're trying to achieve, which are mandatory goals, are the most important ones that we have to deliver. And then make sure you deliver those, right? Deliver on those, and don't try and deliver on everything, because you will fail. All right, brilliant. Next question. What else is there?
We have some question from Stefan as well. How can I get in contact with?
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so, found it. I'm with you now. I found the chat. Brilliant. Okay. So if you go to our website, oh, I just knocked my mouse on the floor. Okay, that's not very helpful. If you go to our website, let me just pull it up and I'll show you where you can go. Give me 1 second.
So I think we will share anyway the presentation, so you will have the all the resources of and the contact of Stuart.
Absolutely. So on our website, there's a button here that's book a demo, and when you're in there, it'll ask you, what do you want to talk about, and just say, I want to talk about Case for Change, and we'll make sure that there's somebody that can talk to you about Case for Change. So hopefully that's easy peasy. Excellent.
Please as well, I give the link for Mentimeter, so we will present it just after the results. So if you can answer, it will be very kind. And
sorry, can I just, I have to respond to TH. Who's TH? Thomas Hagen, I'm going to guess. Right. Saying executives are interested in transformation projects is a bold statement. Probably does not hold true, e.g. for German automotive industry. So I did the keynote at the Bridge conference up in Lithuania about a month ago. And part of that was I put up on the screen the letter to shareholders from the CEO or from the chairman of the board of Volkswagen. Okay. And in the letter to shareholders, he talked about revenue, number of cars delivered, profitability, cash flow, all the things that you would expect in there. And then he went on to say that their top 10 projects, or whatever it was, I forget what the number was, but their top 10 projects are the projects that are driving those results. Okay, so even at the level of the chairman of the board, I guarantee you they really do care about this stuff. That you may not be hearing it, and if you're not hearing it, it's possibly because this process of portfolio management is not connecting the dots for them, right? So if we can fix that, if we can improve that, then they will see the value that the projects are delivering. They'll be able to connect the dots, and it's iterative, right? They'll become hooked, addicted to getting this value from you. So yes, the German automotive industry, absolutely, they do care. They do care. You may not see it day to day, but they absolutely care. Excellent. Right. Any other questions that were in there? Sorry.
I think we have a question from Ahmed as well. From executive asks more and more for measurable ROI, for project. Can you please double click on managing the ROI discussion? Special case, what to do when organization goals aren't clear? Is there a way to align project in that case?
What a good question. Okay, so let's break that into pieces. So first of all, ROI. When most people think about ROI, and when CFOs talk about ROI, they really mean this one-dimensional financial ROI. When the business talks about it, it can mean a lot more than just financial return on investment, right? That's strategic return on investment. It can be soft, squidgy things like, employee motivation, right? That's part of the strategy. When you do something to improve that's a return. You're getting a return for the investment. And so very often what you find, in fact, almost always what you find is that your organization will have several goals. There will be a strategy somewhere. The CEO will have a strategy. They'll have a vision. They may even have got so far as creating some KPIs or OKRs that they use to measure their progress against that strategy. And if they do, happy days, we can take that and we can use that and turn those into criteria within this AHP process I talked about for prioritization, and use it to drive the prioritization process. But it's that measure of value. It's this AHP process is really how you define the ROI, to include things that are not just money, that are so important when you're executing the strategy of the business. So it's a real methodology, and very often what we find is that when we hear statements like, "We don't have a strategy," really what's going on is that you have too many strategies, right? So the CEO has a strategy in their head. The VP of sales has a different strategy, right? That focuses on one component of what the CEO is thinking about. Your manufacturing guy thinks that, you know, the only thing that matters is, you know, building stuff cheaper and at higher quality, right? So that each one of them will have their own version of the strategy in their head, and they're all trying to pull you in different directions. So as a PMO leader, you sit there thinking, we don't have a strategy. Whereas in fact, the problem is you have too many strategies, too many people trying to take you in different strategic directions. And this AHP process, the reason that the scientists have kind of come back and said that's the one that's most effective, is because it's really good at getting your executive team aligned on what are the goals that really matter, right? So then, so AHP, if you like, is the vehicle that translates woolly, vague strategy statements that interpreted lots of different ways by different executives, and it helps you translate that into a measurable, quantifiable model that you can use to drive decision making and action. So usually it's not the case. Very occasionally, I do find organizations, there was one just last week actually, where there really genuinely is no strategy, right? They just kind of go where the customers push them and there's no strategy. But that's very, very rare in my experience. Usually it's the fact that the strategy that they have at the very top of the organization is too vague and everyone is interpreting it their own way. And even when you've created OKRs, right? So objectives and key results, you know, one of those is probably going to be revenue if you're a for-profit. One might be about cost, right? But even defining the targets for those things doesn't tell you how to make a decision, because it doesn't tell you which one is more important, right? Just because I've got a target for 30 million of revenue and 10 million of cost saving doesn't mean I know which one of those is more important. They're just numbers, right? So what AHP does is it helps force that discussion to really clarify and get buy-in, get all your leadership team to buy into this this definition of what strategy is, this translation from strategy speak into something we can use to drive decision making. So that's a really, really excellent question. Was it Ahmed who asked that? Really, really super question. Thank you. Really good. Like that.
I think Ahmed is really happy with your answer, Stuart, as well. Stefan is thanking you as well, but he needs to leave. And as well, Thomas wants to connect with you in the future as well.
Absolutely. Well, so jump onto LinkedIn and connect. And if you're interested in doing a case for change, just go click that button I showed you earlier, that book a demo button, and just type in, I want to do case for change, and we'll make sure someone helps you out with that. It may be me or it might be one of the team. But brilliant. Guys, thank you for having me. I love doing these sessions. It's always great to get out and interact with people one-on-one. And this is much more interactive than doing it in a big conference room at PMI Global Summit or something where you've got 300 people throwing rubber ducks. Actually, normally I have rubber ducks that I share with people at conferences. So I'm sorry I can't give you all a rubber duck, but thank you for having me anyway.
I think, Stuart, your presentation was really really interesting for everybody, for me as well personally, because I'm in the PM office of an organization, so it gives us some clues and how to avoid the pitfall. So I think everybody will take over these tips that you are giving to us. I don't know if there is a last question before we conclude our session. I can see a lot of thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
So on my side, maybe I just have a little question as well. We were speaking in the point of view of a portfolio with plenty of projects, but did you have the case, for example, like in space industry, where you have very long program, so you cannot really increase the flow of projects, but then in those programs you have a lot of little project which makes those programs. Did you have that case, or did you have to help some organization?
Yeah, it's fundamentally the same issue, because you're always going to find bottlenecks in the delivery process, and so this capacity planning thing is really key. There was actually a study done by Bent Flyberg and Atif Ansar at Oxford University where they looked and they compared SpaceX with NASA. And basically SpaceX adopted some of these techniques, right? So it's a very agile, fail fast, resource constraint based model rather than doing big end-to-end planning. And I forget the exact number, but I think it was something like they got to the result in a third of the time and spent 40% of the money, something like that. It was just completely different level of performance of looking at SpaceX using similar techniques. They didn't use exactly the techniques we talked about today, but the principles behind them were the same. So SpaceX using similar techniques and NASA using traditional kind of planning, project planning, critical path type techniques. So you can absolutely use these techniques in that situation. You'd use them slightly differently, but you can absolutely use them. And if that's you, with that kind of a portfolio and that kind of problem, I would absolutely reach out to Mike Hannon, the guy I talked about before, because I've seen him do mind-blowing things in that kind of a situation. Just unbelievable what that guy can get you to do.
Oh, thank you very much, Stuart. I think it will help me a lot for the future. Thank you for this for these tips. Yeah. So I can see a lot of there is a last question maybe. What about Skunk Works? Only working one project at a time with dedicated resources? Maybe for the last question.
Interesting. So Skunk Works is one thing, right? So the Skunk Works that came out of the US military complex, right? Industrial military complex, where I forget was it Lockheed Martin? The guys just locked themselves away. They took over a hangar and they built this thing. I forget what it was, what the project was, where that came from. But anyway, so the idea there is that people go off, they just want to get this project done. So they go off and they form their own little team, they do stuff. That's really unhelpful, right? Generally speaking, really unhelpful. Sometimes you can have a project that's so important that that is the right thing to do. But generally speaking, that's really unhelpful because it means that your resources are being pulled in different directions and you don't even know it. So ideally, you want to get rid of that. You want to have a nice, clean front door where all the projects go in and we make decisions and we allocate. However, there's another bit to that question, which is about only working one project at a time. So I'm going to interpret that as being kind of agile-y. And what's really interesting is at the moment in the industry, right across the industry, there is the beginnings of a big backlash against agile. And the reason for that, I think, is not because agile doesn't work or is not appropriate, right? So the idea of agile is you take a team, self-managed team, and you put them on this project and they crack on and they do it, right? Now, that's a massive oversimplification of agile, by the way. So apologies to any agile fans out there. But the problem really is that people have tried to take that and apply it in places where it doesn't really work. And they've tried to apply it at the portfolio level where it really doesn't work at all. And they've made promises to the business that they just couldn't deliver. And it's really interesting at the minute. There's a bit of a backlash against agile as a concept, not deserved. Agile in the right place is a really, really powerful tool. The most important part of that sentence was in the right place, right? And so remember, actually your execs don't care whether it's a boy duck or a girl duck. They don't care whether it's agile, waterfall, Wadgy fall, banana, scrum, split. I don't care how you get the project done, just get it done, right? Give me the egg. So, so the idea of reorganizing around product or agile, whatever it may be, is useful at times. But the core idea is that if you can get your people to be as close to single task focus as you can, you'll never get perfect single task focus, right? But we want to get them as close to that as we can. Then you're going to get back that 40%, and you're going to accelerate the delivery, right? And again, there are other techniques around, that we can introduce here about taking buffers out from the task level and putting them at the project level, or putting them at the portfolio level and managing them there, that can accelerate things even more, right? So there's a few other tasks, a few other techniques that you can layer on top of this, but the core is just prioritize, get rid of the waste, top of the hill, stagger, and then rebalance between your portfolios. If you do those 4 things, you're going to see incredible results, and then you can start iterating on top of that.
So thank you, Stuart. I think it's concluding the session with the reminder of all the points we need to keep in mind for people like me who are just moving to the PM office, or for people as well who are as well experienced but needs as well some tips for the future. So I will already share the sorry, I was muted. I was speaking the so I will I don't know where it stopped, so I was just saying that it's concluding the session, and that it was really good for people, for me, who are starting in the PM office, or people with more experience even in the domain. I will just share the PDU code, and I will stop the recording. So thank you very much, Stuart, for the session. Before you leave all,